Well, hello and welcome to the Old Classic Car channel. Now, rust is the bane of my life, and if there's any old car owners watching this, I'm sure you'll agree that rust can be a bit of a nightmare. Now, there's many different ways of removing rust: sanding, sandblasting, and so on. I've also read about these rust removal products, which I've always been a bit dubious about, these miracle cures for things like rusty bolts, nuts and bolts, panels, etc. So I thought the only way to find out would be to give it a try. So I went online and bought some of this stuff, RUST DESTRUCTOR. Now, I've no involvement with this company or the people that make it. I just went online and bought it like anybody else. And I thought I'll give it a try on a few sample items just to see if it's as good as it says. It says here it can be used many times over, safe to use, non-hazardous, non-toxic, removes rust easily, only dissolves rust, harmless to good steel, will not affect paints, plastics, rubber, etc., and it's biodegradable. So it ticks many boxes. So I've bought some of that, and I chose 3 sample items to try it on. Now, the first 2, exhibit 1, is a very rusty old bolt. Looks like something that probably came off the Titanic, but if it'll clean that up, it'll clean up anything. And that's probably representative of something you might find on a particularly rusty car. It's well corroded, so it'll be interesting to see how well it does with that. On a similar theme, we have an old Snail brand spanner, made in England. It looks like the sort of thing that the Loch Ness Monster may have used for many years, looking at the state of it. But again, it's a pretty rusty old thing, and if it deals with that, then it's got potential. The third item is an old Nubo tin that's gone rusty, because with these items, such as the spanner and this old bolt, in theory, they could be sandblasted. They could be sanded back with an attachment on a drill or an angle grinder, that kind of thing. So there's many different options for cleaning that up. But with this tin, it's a different case really, because what I want to do is to oily rag this up. But before I do that, I want to remove the rust. And you can't go using sandpaper on it, or an angle grinder, or sandblasting, anything like that, because it's going to destroy all the legend on there, Nubo. And even while the top is a bit rusty and most of it's faded away, it should be possible to bring back some of the writing on there and then just oily rag it and preserve it as best as possible. So, like I say, sanding would be no good for that, but this product, if it works, would be just the job. So those 3 items I'll be trying out. I'll mix up a mixture of the solution in a moment, dunk this in, and then I'll leave it and come back to it a bit later and just see how it's doing. Now, the instructions say wear gloves, blah blah blah, use a plastic container, dilute the product with tap water between 1 to 1 and 1 to 9 parts to make a working solution. Clean the rusty parts to remove grease and oil, etc. Remove loose rust will lengthen the solution's working life. Immerse the parts completely, try to eliminate any air bubbles on the underside. Keep solution at a temperature between 10 degrees and 70 degrees Celsius. The warmer it is, the quicker it works, a bit like myself. Periodically inspect the parts and brush away loose deposits with a stiff brush. Once complete, wash parts in water and treat to prevent flash rusting. Product can be reused until the solution is black. So there we go. So in theory, that should be perfect for all 3 items. So I'll go and mix up some solution and see where we go from there. Right, okay, so I've mixed up a solution and put it into this plastic container. Now I've gone with 1 part RUST DESTRUCTOR to about 7 or 8 parts water. So we've got the bolt and the spanner in there. I think they're going to need the most time if the rust is going to shift off those at all, because they're both quite heavily rusted. The tin has much lighter rust on it, and I've had to weigh it down because I wanted to float away. So they're all fully submersed now, so I think for now I'll just leave them and for this product to do what it does, and I'll come back a bit later and just see how it's looking and see if there's any improvement at all. Oh, okay, it's day 2 now. I did have a check up on these last night just to make sure they were going okay, and to be honest they were pretty much sorted even then, but I thought, well, there's no rush, so I'll leave them overnight and see what's what. Now obviously, as I said before, you could use these sort of sanding attachments, and certainly the bolt and the spanner would have responded pretty well to these, but they're not always suitable. If you don't want to create a lot of dust, then something like this RUST Destructor might well be a better option. And certainly if you've got old paintwork and things that you want to preserve, you can't be taking something abrasive to get rid of the rusty parts. So let's have a look, see what we've got in here. I had to stop as there's a Chinook flying over. What a thing. You might still be able to hear the Chinook flying over, but let's have a look, see what we've got in here. So, spanner first. So it's all looking fairly wet, but you can certainly make out the livery. And considering this was red rusty, let's just give it a quick wipe over with a trusty rag. Let's have a look, see what we've got going on here then. I can still hear that Chinook in the distance. Well, I think that's just come up pretty well. Let's have a look. Like I said, I've not really done anything to it. I just turned it over yesterday evening, and it was already looking pretty de-rusted by then, and the corrosion seems to have pretty much disappeared. I've just given it a quick wipe over with this rag, and that's, hopefully you can see that, that's what we're left with. So it's bare metal, and that is ready for an oily rag, I think. That's come pretty well, I think. You can just about make out snail for snail brand on here. 22 millimeters. Really? Yeah, so the first thing out, that's come out pretty well, I think. I'll put that down here. Now, time for the rusty bolt. Like I said, this is fairly typical of anything that you'll find on a project vehicle. So let's give this a quick wipe. I'm not going over it with the wire wool or anything like that, or the wire brush or sandpaper. And there, it's looking promising. Again, I've not really done a great deal to this, but that, is that focusing? Yeah, that is looking like a pretty healthy looking bolt to me. The threads are a bit manky, but for the purposes of the exercise, I think that's looking pretty healthy. Like I say, I put that in just over a day ago, but I don't think it would have actually taken that long to lose its corrosion in the solution. I think it would have been ready yesterday, but like I said, I just thought I'd leave it overnight because there was no great rush. So that's example number 2. Pop that down there. Now it's the old tin with the legend on it, the Nubo writing on it. Like I say, I wanted to already rag this, but before I did it, I wanted to try and remove as much of the corrosion as possible. So the sides weren't too bad, and the top is definitely looking a lot better now. I can actually see. You couldn't really read most of this. You knew it was there, but you couldn't really read it. So wherever there was corrosion, that's now gone, and you've just got bare metal, and it's revealed registered, trademark, and some of the other writing on the front. So that, I think, has come up pretty well. The sides are looking nice, and the underside had surface rust all over it. There's a little bit there, but that just wipes off. You can see if I get the cloth, my trusty old shirt, and give it a wipe, we should find that it's not looking too bad at all. The inside wasn't bad to start with, but I'll give it a dry off, because like it says on the bottle, the risk is that if you don't protect things, dry them out and protect them, they'll soon flash rust and start rusting all over again. So these I'll treat to a drop of oil, the old oily rag, before too much time has passed. And one thing to bear in mind when you're oily ragging old tins, it's quite often the case that you'll just grab the nearest tin of WD-40 and give them a wipe over, but sometimes WD-40 can have its issues. I've noticed with certain shell tins where I've read printed writing and lettering on a yellow tin, if you use WD-40 you can actually lift the lettering off, so I don't think that would happen with this, but I'll probably just use some 3-in-1 or something like that on a rag and just give it a wipe. But you can see even the base is looking pretty good now. If I spent longer wiping it over, but there, hopefully you can see that well enough. If you compare that, if you flick back to how that looked yesterday, I think you'll agree that's quite a good improvement. I'm certainly happy. I didn't think it'd come up looking that well, actually, to be honest. Like I say, I've got no involvement with the people that make this. I just bought it like anyone else off the internet, and I thought I'd give it a test because I'm a bit dubious about some of these so-called miracle products. And I mean, I'm sure there are other people making this, and you may even be able to make your own if you go and find the ingredients online, but it wasn't particularly expensive, and it goes quite a long way. I mean, the solution, even though it's gone yellowy now, still got plenty of life left in it, so I could chuck a few more spanners in and leave them in overnight. But yeah, I'm pleased with how that's come out. So I also put in another tin last night. I was just having a root around, bit of a fertile, and this one was in a very bad way, and it's still in a fairly bad way. A Superior cycle repair outfit for something in cycle. That's a tyre repair kit. Now this one probably needs to be a little bit longer because I only put this in last night and it was quite heavily rusted, but again you can see where the rust is inside the lid. It's just wiping away now. So it's a good non-destructive way of removing corrosion from things that you cannot take an abrasive product to, because you couldn't take wire wool to that very successfully because you'd end up lifting off all the old writing on it, and it's never going to be a perfect box, but you can certainly improve it so that at least you can make out the writing on it, because this one was, I mean, it's not brilliant now, but it's certainly on its way, and I'll probably leave this one. I'll let this one soak for another day or so, and it'll probably come out looking a bit more like the Nubo one. So yeah, I think that's a fairly successful test, to be honest. Like I say, I'm not endorsing this particular company's products. I don't know who makes it. I don't know what they make it from. Well, they say it's biodegradable on the bottle, and I'm sure, like I say, you could look at the ingredients and find out what actually goes into it. But on the face of it, it seems to work quite well. And you know, like I say, this isn't an endorsement. I'm just testing it for my own purposes, and I thought I'd record it. And yeah, it seems to have done the job I wanted. So, rusty old spanners, things like that, rusty old bolts, seem to come out pretty successfully. So I hope that was of interest anyway. And yeah, like I say, it's just a good way of de-rusting something when you don't want to sort of start taking sanding attachments and the like to an item. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Just going to get an oily rag for it, I think, now. Thanks for watching. Actually, I couldn't resist giving it a quick oily rag now while I'm here. Bit of 3-in-1. Glossy old rag. Just wipe that over, and it should keep the rust at bay for a little while longer, because out here in the garage things can get a little damp at certain times of the year. And corrosion is just a nightmare, because once it starts it's very hard to get rid of it completely. So anything you can do to slow it in its tracks, the better, because rust, especially rust once it gets into a car, it just costs a fortune to sort it out properly. It's looking a lot better. That's looking a lot happier, I think. Let's have a look. There we go. And that's looking a lot happier now. It's okay. That one can go on the shelf now. And the problem is now I need to hide it from my lad, because he'll be after it. Thanks for watching.